In 1990, my mom was having a big year. She was going up for a huge promotion, SVP at Morgan Stanley. At the same time, she was going through a more anxiety-inducing process. She was trying to get pregnant. Now, my mom was the only woman in her product group, and she was a go-getter. She was also 31, and my parents were having some trouble conceiving. This meant that my mom wasn't just trying to get pregnant, she was going through IVF. Her 12-hour workday now featured secret trips to a broom closet, where she had to inject a large needle full of hormones. While her male colleagues went to client happy hours, she made up excuses and snuck off for weekly trips to the doctor. My mom covered her tracks because she wasn't sure what her male colleagues would think if they found out she was trying to have a baby. As she hid in that closet, she wondered, would her boss think she was less committed to her job? Would she be passed over when they staffed important deals? Ultimately, my mom got that promotion, but along the way, she miscarried. Now, my mom didn't share any of this with her coworkers, and it turns out it's probably good that she didn't. Research on bias against pregnant employees is far-ranging and scarily conclusive. Pregnancy bias is real. The workforce is 47% women, and more of those women are delaying childbirth to be a part of that workforce. But the workplace isn't changing to meet that reality. Women are still trapped in their own metaphorical broom closets. It's time to stop the secrecy and open up a dialogue. So, how can employers help reduce stigma around pregnancy and fertility at work and improve outcomes for all women, all parents in the process? Before we answer that, first we have to ask, what is pregnancy bias? To do that, we're going to do a little experiment. Raise your hands if you plan on having children. Whoa, way more than I practiced having, it's the answer. All right. So raise your hands again if you plan on working while you or your partner is pregnant. Same answer, great. Now, raise your hands again if you're gonna tell your employer immediately about your pregnancy. Nobody, cool, all right. So, men in the room, you should tell everybody. Research shows us that once you're a parent, you'll be paid more, hired more frequently, and be seen as more responsible. But women, for us, the story is different. For us, parenthood is a penalty. Controlling for hours worked, experience, industry, and education, pregnant women and new mothers will be hired less, paid less, and seen as less competent. The New York Times found startling evidence of this. Even relative to their own evaluations pre-pregnancy, once pregnant, women were immediately seen as less committed. They were left out of important meetings and not given the same bonuses. And y'all, this problem is only getting worse. The Equal Opportunity Employment Commission found that this has been rising for over 20 years when they studied pregnancy discrimination claims. And it's actually at its highest point ever. This could be partially caused by our changing fertility landscape. The average age of first childbirth is also at its highest ever, especially for women with undergraduate or graduate degrees. Take us again as an example. The women in this room will likely have their first child at age 33. But this trend of later stage parenthood means that for us, having a baby might not be as simple. Some of us, like my mom, will need fertility assistance. And treatments like IVF are time and emotion intensive. They can impact the workday and compound our fears of being seen as less committed. And though male factor infertility is the root cause of nearly half of infertility cases for couples, the treatments fall squarely on the shoulders of women. Now you understand the dynamics in play, the reasons my mom hid in that closet. Women are caught in this terrible tension between pursuing their goals of motherhood and being seen as less invested to the careers they spent years building. And pregnancy bias isn't just bad for women. It's bad for families and employers too. So if you've been chilling because you don't have a uterus, it's time to check back in. You need to build this bias into your budget. If you plan on having a dual income household with children, your female partner will statistically never recover her earning power. She will make on average $16,000 less a year after having her first child. That's a loss of over $1 million by the time you're both ready to retire. And as future employers, we need to prepare for the attrition of valuable employees from the workforce. Given the penalty of motherhood and the rising cost of childcare, many women debate the economics of returning to work. So it's clear what we must do. Reduce pregnancy bias and reduce the economic loss of talented women leaving the workforce. But hundreds of years of gender bias, that is a lot to deal with all at once. So let's start by tackling the stigma around starting a family. A space we can look to for inspiration is mental health. To employers, employees dealing with mental health are not dissimilar from women trying to get pregnant. In both cases, people are dealing with highly emotional considerations, maybe juggling doctor's appointments, and may fear the judgment of their coworkers. Many companies have successfully implemented policies to reduce stigma around mental health, and specifically there are 3 that we can adopt. First, let's dedicate HR resources to pregnancy and fertility. Let's sponsor educational programs that clearly lay out fertility policy and family leave. Putting our voices strongly behind these programs demonstrates commitment to employees trying to become parents. And it creates a culture of support, not stigma. Second, let's dedicate physical spaces on site for women dealing with fertility. There's no reason that someone going through IVF should be injecting hormones in a closet. Creating spaces for this, the same way we do for diabetics injecting insulin, helps dispel the sense of shame and secrecy. And it also minimizes interruption to the workday. It's a win-win. Third and finally, we need to share stories, not just from women, but from everyone, particularly from senior leadership. Deloitte hosted a series of fireside chats with partners who were dealing with mental health at work, and the results were immediate. Employees immediately said that they felt reduced feelings of stigma and isolation. Talking about pregnancy and fertility the same way not only serves to educate those who may not be aware of the impact, but it makes us more empathetic colleagues. So sharing stories is exactly why I'm here today. Though the first round didn't go quite as planned, my brother and I were the successful result of IVF cycle number 2. So I'm here, but unfortunately, my mom isn't. We lost her to a battle with cancer 18 years ago, and that's why I'm on stage in front of you right now. She would have wanted me to share her story, to keep another woman from fighting these battles alone. So here's my final ask. Let's be better future employers. Let's think about pregnancy bias when we design our workspaces or allocate our HR resources. Let's think about pregnancy bias when we hire, when we staff, when we promote. Let's share our stories, all of us. Let's be more empathetic employers of not only women, but all parents. You've listened to me. Now go out and listen to them. Thank you.